So Deltarune is Toby Fox's latest venture into the world of gaming. It's approximately a 3-hour-long first chapter to a much larger story that he and his team are going to create and release at a predetermined time in the future. It looks like that's going to take a couple of years though. The most pressing thing that one will notice when playing Deltarune is that it shares a lot of similarities with his predecessing series, Undertale, from characters to core mechanics, and this is by no means an accident. Now Toby has since gone on the record to confirm that this is in no way connected to the story of Undertale, stating, if your characters had a happy ending in that, then that's it. They're still happy. Which is a sour note for anyone who ended it on a genocide route or tried attempting a route after a genocide route. So although Deltarune is not connected to that particular version of the story, I think it would be foolish to say that Deltarune doesn't have any relevance to the proverbial multiverse of Toby Fox's machinations. And I think I have a clue about what this is. Welcome back to One True Theory, where today we are back to talking about a game for the first time in forever. Today is Deltarune Day, and there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time to leave, play the game over the course of the next 3 hours or so, and then come back and let's talk about it. You good? Okay, good. Deltarune is not a prequel or a sequel to the universe of Undertale. Rather, an origin story to the series' most evil character, Chara. Chara, as many of you may or may not remember from Undertale, is the entity that possesses your character slowly and more completely the more and more love you inflict on the monsters of the underground and the more EXP you gain. If you fully complete a genocide run, then Chara fully takes over your body and literally destroys that timeline of Undertale. Cuts it straight with their knife. And if you ever try playing the game again, then you are met with an unfortunate reminder that the entity of pure evil is still omnipresent in your character, Frisk, where every ending ends with everyone dying and the universe being torn asunder. Fast forward to Deltarune and you are met with your player character, Chris, the lone human child in a town that seems almost entirely populated by monsters, living with your adopted parent, Toriel, and adopted brother, Asriel. Asriel is a bit older than you and is currently away at college, though. Your character is dressed in some familiar clothing, but through the events of the game you find that despite your rough upbringings, living in a single-parent home and in a town where no other humans seem to live and being bullied and being an outcast at school, you're a nice enough kid. You were a little bit blank, a little bit, non-existent up until the events of the game, but you were a nice enough kid. Fast forward a bit and you are partnered up in a school project with the resident bully, Susie. And both of you are whisked away to a magical, very stereotypical fantasy world, if I might add. You finally make it to a familiar-looking save point, where the scheme of this game's save points appear to be talking about something shining within you. More on that a little bit later. You and Susie meet back up in this strange world and then meet up with Ralsei, who is a Prince of Darkness, and they give you the backstory. 2 worlds exist, a world of light and a world of darkness, which live in balance, and the local villain in the world of darkness is threatening to usurp the balance, which could cause the absolute calamity to both worlds. Skip ahead a bunch and you'll find that this game is basically asking you to play the same way it was asking you to play Undertale, or rather that Toby was asking you to play Undertale. Which isn't important until you consider the game focuses heavily on the idea of choice. And following this up with the fact that it's a Toby Fox game probably means it's a deconstruction of RPG choices, which aren't really true choices, since the game is programmed to respond in specific ways with minimal depth, making your choices irrelevant, say for instance Mass Effect 3's ending, where it's basically just a palette swap of the same thing happening. With that in mind, I won't focus too much on the time spent within the world of darkness, and cut straight to the ending. After beating the final boss, you and Susie make it to the new pillar of darkness that was created and is threatening to usurp the balance of the 2 worlds. Your character Chris's soul shines from within their body and blasts forth into a pillar seemingly absorbing all of it. Almost instantly, you and Susie end up in a random empty classroom in a school, and Susie states that you guys should go there again tomorrow, having officially befriended you in the final acts of the game. The last part of Deltarune is going around town and chatting with people before you go home and go to sleep. Chris wakes up in the middle of the night and you see them rip their soul out of their body and throw it in a birdcage that's in the room before brandishing a knife from thin air and flashing a devilish smile before the game closes out. This, I believe, is the birthplace of the entity known as Chara, and this is what the game means by your choices don't matter. Regardless of if you went full fighting everything or full pacifist in the world of darkness, your soul is always going to absorb the entire pillar of darkness to escape, and Chara was always going to be born from it. Now, saying that this is the birthplace of Chara means that this has to be the first time Chara has ever existed. But how do we present that? How do we prove that? Well, it's the sheer presentation of the events of the game. The game explicitly shows us some very prominent moments that weren't very near the caliber to those shown in Undertale, which caused Chara's manifestation. Because the implication of the events in this game is that your character would have never Chara'd out had they not gone through the process to absorb the Pillar of Darkness, because the absorption of that much concentrated darkness into something as powerful as a human soul was doomed to give that darkness, that evil, a concentrated entity, and a form. And now that this form exists, it is able to possess and infringe on other humans' souls, much easier, such as with Frisk in Undertale. And this isn't entirely unrealistic, since in Deltarune, Lancer, a minor antagonist you meet in the game who seems to say his father, the final boss of Chapter 1, wasn't always this crazed tyrant who wanted to uproot the light world. It wasn't until he opened up the other portal of darkness. And if merely being in the presence of a portal of darkness is able to make a monster of the world of darkness go crazy, then imagine what directly putting your soul into and absorbing it might do. And there's a couple of other odd things to consider, which don't mean much by themselves or without context from Undertale, but with it all put together makes for some thought-provoking evidence. First off, in this game, despite everything, it still shows that human souls are still clearly superior to monster souls, as your character is the only one who can see the save spots, and thus is the only one who can really use the save spots. Another thing that's interesting to point out is Chara's fashion sense. As we've noted from Undertale, Chara likes to wear the green sweater with the yellow stripe across it. And your character Chris in this game wears the green sweater with the yellow stripe across it. I think this is where Chara got their sense of fashion, because the green sweater with the yellow stripe across it just happened to be what Chris was wearing right as Chara finished possessing Chris's body. And we can even see that this holds up true, because even in the game of Undertale, whenever Chara finally finishes controlling over Frisk's body, Chara doesn't opt to keep Frisk's sweater, the purple and blue, or the purple sweater, whatever Frisk is wearing. I get my colors mixed up sometimes. We go a little bit deeper, and we can couple that with the way Sans is acting, which is decisively normal, even going so far as to actually be working and running a shop, as well as actively trying to make new friends. This means he hasn't experienced the destruction of universe after universe, and hasn't lost all faith in everything, ever getting better like we see in Undertale. And I think one of the most important things to note is one of the most subtle things in the game. Even if you fight everything in the game, you never kill anything. Thus you never gain EXP, execution points, which means you haven't let any evil into your soul, up until Chris does this to escape from the world of darkness, absorbing the Pillar of Darkness. So this means you were never in danger of Chara's temptations up until after this point, and only one thing happened between you beating the final boss and getting back to the real world. Or the world of light, rather. So this is Chara's birthplace, and that means Chara is going to play a much bigger part in the rest of Deltarune, but what does that mean for the rest of the game? Well, I believe this means that the main character for the rest of Deltarune is going to be Susie. After having shown that she can solve her problems in more ways than just violence, it makes her a perfect character to fill in Chris's role. You as Susie will start to notice strange happenings going on around town. Murders, as it were, and you're going to discover that it was Chara possessed Chris doing them. You're going to try and convince them out of it, but they will beat you to the brink of death. Eventually, you as Susie will make a retreat to the world of darkness and meet up with Ralsei. Chara will follow you and begin wreaking havoc on the world of darkness. Together, you two, and possibly Lancer, will chase down a Chara-possessed Chris and try to make them turn good again, to no avail. Eventually, you'll have to come up to a hard choice of killing Chara and Chris's body to stop them permanently, or try and pacify it one last time. A much darker and much more mature choice than in anything in Undertale before it. Canonical to the story of Undertale, I believe Susie tried to save Chris one last time, but died because of it. and Chara then obtained more power, giving it the ability to travel to other timelines. But in Deltarune, you, the player, will be given the hard choice. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope there truly is another way. But those are just my thoughts. Thank you for joining, everybody. I hope to see you in the next video, because remember, every video is a party, and you're all invited to the next one. Hey, if you enjoyed this Deltarune theory, then maybe you might enjoy seeing me play through Deltarune over there on my gameplay channel. It's about 20 episodes, all around 12 minutes per episode, and you get to see kind of my face a little bit more, which, granted, might be problematic for some people, but otherwise, just a good old fun time. I really enjoyed it, so go ahead and check that out. Or if you just want to check out more content here, that would be great. Got some links up on the screen that you can click, got some links down in the description for things I can't put on screen. But until next time, thank you, and have a good night.